You know how everyone says you should appreciate what you have? Yeah, I probably should have listened. I'm Caitlin, 27, and this is how I went from joking about being a single mom to actually becoming one. Looking back, I had it made. A dedicated husband, a beautiful daughter, and a life most people would kill for. But I guess some of us have to learn things the hard way. Marty and I were high school sweethearts. He was the quiet, determined type who knew exactly what he wanted, to become a police officer. I was the perky cheerleader who thought his seriousness was cute back then. We got married right after he finished the academy, and I supported him through all those grueling training months. I was so proud when he finally got his badge. Things changed after Emma was born 4 years ago. Marty threw himself into his work even more, picking up extra shifts, volunteering for overtime. He said it was for our future, but all I saw was an empty bed and silent dinners. The guy who used to look at me like I hung the moon now barely noticed when I changed my hair. And yeah, I gained some weight after Emma, who doesn't? But he never said anything about it, and somehow that felt worse than if he had. I had the dream house in the nice neighborhood, the SUV in the driveway, and all the security any woman could want. Marty made sure every bill was paid. Emma had the best of everything, and I could stay home with our daughter. My friends kept telling me how lucky I was to have such a provider, especially in this economy. But they didn't see how lonely it got. Marty took his job so seriously, always talking about responsibility and duty. Every time there was a news story about an officer getting hurt, he'd get this look in his eyes, like he was ready to jump into the line of fire himself. I hated that look. It reminded me that his job would always come first. He'd miss dinners, school events, and family gatherings because the city needs me, babe. I stopped telling him about Emma's little achievements because his responses were always distracted texts hours later. I started going to these monthly brunches with other moms from Emma's preschool. That's where the jokes began. They'd talk about their husbands being workaholics, and I'd chime in with, "I'm basically a single mom anyway." They'd laugh, clink their mimosa glasses, and tell me how lucky I was that Marty's overtime meant designer purses and vacations. But I didn't want the stuff. I wanted my husband back. The worst part? Marty never complained. Not once. He'd come home exhausted after a 12-hour shift and still try to play with Emma for a few minutes before passing out. He'd apologize for missing events, but remind me that he was doing it all for us. His dedication should have been admirable, but it just made me feel more alone, more invisible. I started dressing up more, posting perfect family photos on Instagram, trying to get some kind of reaction from him. But Marty was too focused on providing a stable future to notice the present was slipping away. All those late-night scrolling sessions, watching other couples' date-night posts while my husband was out protecting strangers, it started eating at me. If someone had told me then where all this was heading, I probably wouldn't have believed them. But that's the thing about taking people for granted. You don't realize what you had until you're living the joke you used to tell. Those monthly brunches became my escape. Every first Saturday, I'd dress up in my designer jeans and meet the other moms at this trendy cafe downtown. Between bottomless mimosas and overpriced avocado toast, we'd share our marriage struggles. I'd roll my eyes and say, "Another night alone while Marty works overtime." I swear, I'm basically a single mom at this point. They'd laugh and say how lucky I was to have a husband who worked so hard. "At least he's not playing video games all day like mine," they'd joke back. The thing is, I started believing my own jokes. Every time Marty missed a family dinner or school event because he got called in, I'd text the group chat, "Single mom life strikes again." It became my go-to response for everything. Parent-teacher conference? Going solo as usual. Emma's dance recital? Just another day in single mom life. The more they sympathized, the more I leaned into it. My Instagram became a highlight reel of single mom moments. Cute pics of Emma and me at the park, shopping trips, lunch dates. Marty barely noticed. He was too busy checking his work schedule or responding to calls from his sergeant. When he did see the posts, he'd just say, "Glad you girls had fun," and go back to his police reports. The brunches got longer, the mimosas got stronger, and my jokes got bolder. "My husband's married to his badge," I'd announce to sympathetic nods. I should start charging the police department rent for keeping my husband away. The other moms would laugh, but they always defended Marty. "He's doing it for you and Emma," they'd say. "You're so blessed to have such a responsible man." But blessed isn't how I felt when I was alone every night, scrolling through social media while Marty worked another graveyard shift. Blessed isn't what crossed my mind when he'd come home too tired to even ask about my day. And blessed definitely wasn't what I was thinking when he missed Emma's first ballet performance because of some emergency call. The irony? I had no idea what being a single mom actually meant. I was sitting in my fully paid house, driving my nice car, buying whatever I wanted, and complaining about being alone. Meanwhile, Marty was out there literally risking his life to give us this lifestyle. But I was too busy playing victim at brunch to see it. Looking back, those brunches were the beginning of the end. Each time I joked about being a single mom, I was pushing myself further from reality and deeper into a fantasy where I was some kind of martyr. If I'd just shut up and appreciated what I had. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Everything really started to unravel the day I met Carlos at school pickup. It was a regular Tuesday afternoon. I was standing outside Emma's preschool, scrolling through Instagram while waiting for the kids to come out, when I heard someone struggle with a stack of art projects. That's when I first saw him, Carlos. Not movie star handsome or anything, but something about his goofy smile as he juggled his son's artwork made me laugh. He caught my eye and shrugged. "They don't teach art project management at Dad's school." I didn't mean to start talking to him every day. It just happened. He was always there early too, and somehow he noticed things Marty hadn't in months. "New haircut," he'd ask, or "That color looks nice on you." Simple things that shouldn't have mattered but did. When he told me he was a single dad, I felt this weird relief, like I finally had someone who understood my single-parent jokes. The first time he suggested the kids have a play date, I hesitated. But Emma had been begging for more friends, and his son Miguel was in her class. It made sense, right? When I mentioned it to Marty that night, I just said, "Emma made a new friend." I didn't mention Miguel's dad. I told myself it wasn't important information. Those playdates became the highlight of my week. While the kids played, Carlos and I would talk about everything and nothing. He'd make me laugh with stories about his dating disasters, and I'd find myself fixing his collar or touching his arm without thinking. When he finally asked if I was married, I showed him my ring. He apologized and backed off immediately, being all respectful about it. But something in me didn't want him to stop. I started putting more effort into school pickup. Trading my mom buns for blown-out hair, wearing makeup, choosing cute outfits instead of yoga pants. I told myself it was just about feeling good about myself. But the way Carlos's eyes would linger when he saw me, it gave me butterflies I hadn't felt since high school. The text started innocently enough. "Miguel forgot his jacket at your place. Emma left her coloring book here." But soon we were sending funny memes, sharing stories about our days. When Marty would come home and barely grunt a hello before passing out, I'd find myself reaching for my phone, knowing Carlos would appreciate my jokes about the kids' latest adventures. Every time I went to brunch now, my single mom jokes felt different. The other moms would complain about their husbands, and I'd jump in with my usual lines about Marty's absence. But now there was this secret thrill, this other life I was building that none of them knew about. Carlos made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. I knew what I was doing wasn't right. The guilt would hit me late at night, watching Marty sleep after his long shifts. But then he'd miss another school event, another family dinner, and I'd think about Carlos's smile, his attention, the way he made time for me despite having his own struggles as a actual single parent. I started living for those moments at pickup. Those playdates that were becoming less about the kids and more about us. What I didn't realize then was how quickly everything was about to fall apart. How one innocent question from Emma would bring my whole carefully built world crashing down. But before that happened, I crossed a line I can't take back. After Carlos respectfully backed off about my marriage, I should have done the same. Instead, I started texting him more. "Emma really misses Miguel." I'd write, or, "The kids had so much fun last time, we should do it again." I knew exactly what I was doing. using our kids as an excuse to see him. The first time we met without the kids, it was supposed to be innocent. I told Marty I was having coffee with one of the moms, while Emma was at her dance class. Technically, I was meeting a parent from school. I just left out the part about it being Carlos. He looked different without Miguel around, more focused on me. We talked for 2 hours, and for the first time in forever, someone actually listened to my stories, laughed at my jokes, made me feel like I mattered. My brunch group noticed the change in me. "You seem happier lately," they'd say. "Maybe Marty's finally spending more time at home?" I'd just smile and make another one of my single mom jokes, but now they felt more like a cover story. The truth was, I was happier. Just not because of my husband. The physical stuff started small. A touch that lasted too long when passing coffee, sitting closer than necessary during playdates, hugs goodbye that felt different. I told myself it was harmless flirting, that I deserved to feel wanted after years of Marty's emotional absence. But deep down, I knew where this was heading. The first time Carlos kissed me, it was after a playdate. The kids were occupied with a movie in the next room, and we were cleaning up snacks in the kitchen. He looked at me and said, "You know, your husband's crazy for not seeing how amazing you are." Before I could process what was happening, his lips were on mine. I should have stopped it there. Should have remembered my vows, thought about Emma, considered what this would do to Marty. Instead, I kissed him back. Things escalated quickly after that. Our play dates became more frequent, carefully planned around Marty's shifts. I got better at lying, creating a whole system of fake mom friends and school events to explain my absences. The guilt would hit me sometimes, especially when Marty would come home exhausted from a dangerous shift and still try to spend time with Emma. But then Carlos would text and all my rationalizations would flood back. At brunch, I was still playing my part. "Another night alone," I'd announce, conveniently leaving out that I wasn't actually alone anymore. My friends started giving me concerned looks, like they could sense something was off. But I was too caught up in my secret life to care. I had my comfortable marriage with Marty providing everything, and my exciting hidden romance with Carlos making me feel alive again. I got sloppy though. Started taking more risks, caring less about getting caught. I'd let Carlos pick up Emma from school sometimes when I was running late, not thinking about how much she might say to Marty. I saved his number under a woman's name in my phone, but I stopped being careful about deleting our messages. Part of me maybe wanted to get caught, to force an end to this double life I was living. What I didn't expect was for my own daughter to be the one to bring it all crashing down. Kids see everything, and they can't keep secrets forever, especially not from their daddy. It happened on one of those rare nights when Marty was actually home for dinner. Emma was chattering away about her day, and I was half listening while texting Carlos under the table. Then she said something that made my blood run cold. "Daddy, how come you never make Mommy laugh like Mr. Carlos does?" The silence that followed was deafening. I watched Marty's face change as he asked, "Who's Mr. Carlos, princess?" I jumped in, trying to explain about Miguel's dad and the playdates, but Emma kept going. "He picks me up from school sometimes when Mommy's busy. He makes funny faces like you used to do." I could see Marty's cop instincts kicking in. The way he got quiet, started asking Emma careful questions, but she suddenly went silent too, looking at me with big eyes. I'd told her so many times that some things were just our secret, but I never thought about how that might look to Marty. How it would feel to him, realizing his daughter had been keeping secrets about another man. That night, after Emma went to bed, Marty confronted me. "So when were you going to tell me about this guy?" His voice was scary calm. I got defensive, started listing all the times I'd mentioned playdates and school friends, conveniently leaving out that I'd never specified it was a single dad. The more I tried to explain, the worse it sounded. "You let another man pick up our daughter?" His voice was rising now. "How long has this been going on? What else don't I know?" I watched him piece it together. All those times I was out with the moms, or at school events. My phone buzzed right then with a text from Carlos, and Marty's face went dark. He grabbed my phone before I could stop him. I hadn't deleted the messages in weeks. There was no point trying to deny it anymore. I watched his expression change as he scrolled through months of flirty texts, meeting arrangements, hearts, and emojis that proved this wasn't just about the kids. I've been working overtime, missing sleep, risking my life every day to give you and Emma everything, he said, his voice breaking. And this is what you do with it? Make me look like a fool while you play house with some other guy? The worst part? He had to go to work the next morning, had to put on his uniform and protect the community knowing what he knew. I spent that whole day waiting for the other shoe to drop, jumping every time my phone buzzed. But it wasn't until he came home the next night that he told me he wanted a divorce. All those single mom jokes suddenly weren't funny anymore. They were about to become my reality, and I had no one to blame but myself. Carlos stopped answering my texts once word got out. Turns out he wasn't interested in dealing with all this drama, and my comfortable life? It was about to change in ways I never imagined. The divorce was quick. Marty was too disgusted to even fight me on anything. He transferred to a precinct across town and only communicated through his lawyer. I got primary custody of Emma, the house, and what I thought was decent alimony and child support. I really thought I'd won. Stupid me actually believed Carlos would step up once I was officially single. But life has a way of serving you exactly what you deserve. 2 weeks after my divorce was finalized, I saw Carlos's Facebook status change, giving our family another chance, with a picture of him, his ex, and Miguel at some beach. He didn't even have the decency to tell me himself. All those sweet words about how amazing I was, how Marty didn't appreciate me. Turns out I was just his entertainment while his ex was finding herself or whatever. That's when reality really hit. Those alimony checks? They don't go as far as a full-time provider's salary. Child support helps, but it's nothing compared to having a husband who handed over his whole paycheck. My parents got tired of watching Emma for free while I figured things out. They started pushing me to get a job, saying they weren't getting any younger. Do you know how humiliating it is to apply for entry-level jobs at 27? All those years of being a stay-at-home mom look like a big blank space on my resume. I had to take this customer service job that barely covered daycare costs. My designer purses started going on Facebook Marketplace one by one. Turns out being an actual single mom isn't as glamorous as I made it sound at those brunches. Speaking of those brunches, funny how those invites dried up. The same women who used to laugh at my single mom jokes now whispered about me behind my back. They all sided with Marty, of course, the dedicated officer who worked himself to the bone for his family while his wife ran around with another man. I couldn't even be mad about it. They were right. Emma started asking why we couldn't go to dance class anymore, why we had to shop at cheaper stores. How do you explain to a 4-year-old that mommy ruined everything? That her daddy didn't abandon us, I drove him away. That all those playdates with Miguel were really just mommy being selfish. The worst part? I stalk Marty's social media sometimes, through a fake account since he blocked me. He's thriving at his new precinct. Got promoted to detective recently. Meanwhile, I'm serving coffee to rude customers and begging my parents to watch Emma when I get scheduled for evening shifts. Some days I look at myself in the mirror and want to scream at that entitled brat who thought she had it so hard before. But here's the real kicker. I still can't fully admit it was all my fault. I catch myself saying things like, if Marty had just been more present, or if he had paid more attention to me. Even now, I'm trying to justify what I did. Maybe that's why I'm telling this story. Not because I've learned my lesson, but because I still don't know how I went from having it all to becoming the punchline of my own stupid jokes. That's not even the end of the humiliation. Last week, I saw Carlos and his family at Emma's school concert. They're expecting a baby now. His ex-wife had the nerve to wear this gorgeous designer dress, probably the same brand I used to wear before I had to sell everything on Poshmark. The worst part? Emma ran up to hug Miguel like nothing had changed, while I stood there in my work uniform because I had a shift right after. Marty showed up too, looking sharp in his detective suit. He's lost weight, started working out more. All the other moms were fawning over him, especially since the local news did that piece about him solving some big case. He barely looked at me, Just came to support Emma and left with some pretty teacher he's apparently dating now. I wanted to be mad. But what right did I have? My Instagram's a joke now. All those living my best life and blessed single mama posts feel pathetic. Everyone knows the truth, that I'm working at a job I hate, living in a house I can barely afford, and watching both men I thought I could count on build beautiful lives without me. Carlos has his perfect little family reunion, and Marty's out there thriving with his new girlfriend who looks at him like I used to. The other day, Emma asked me why we don't have nice family dinners anymore, like her friend Ashley does. Daddy always works, but at least he calls every night, Ashley's mom had said at pickup. I almost laughed. That used to be my line. Now I'm the one missing dinner because I picked up extra shifts to cover Emma's school supplies. Karma really is something else. I see these young moms at work sometimes complaining about their husbands working too much or not being romantic enough. I want to shake them and tell them to wake up. Want to show them my life as a cautionary tale. But I don't. Instead, I go home to my half-empty house, scroll through memories of my old life, and try to convince myself that everything happens for a reason. My mom says I need therapy to really process what I did to my family. But that would mean admitting that Marty wasn't the problem, that his long hours weren't the issue, that I didn't become a single mom because of his job. I became one because I was too selfish to appreciate a good man's dedication to providing for his family. So here I am, living the reality of all those jokes I used to make. No more comfortable lifestyle, no more stay-at-home mom days, no more financial security. Just me, learning the hard way that being an actual single mom isn't a punchline at brunch. It's a reality I created for myself. And the worst part? Sometimes, late at night when I can't sleep, I admit to myself that I miss the life I had when I was just basically a single mom. But I'll probably never say that out loud.